Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you this afternoon. It's not the only mail that's coming today, but oh my, is it the best mail that's coming today. Because I indulged myself. I did a little online shopping at Amazon. Uh, uh, for a number of relatively new releases that I did not get from publishers. And they all came. The miracle of Amazon. I realize how evil people say Amazon is, but I get to make an order without leaving my couch, and it arrives in 2 days. These books arrive in 2 days. No putting on pants, getting on the subway, going to the nearest big chain bookstore, dealing with rude service, dealing with insane customers all the way there, all the way back, dealing with insane people on every inch of the sidewalk, then waiting in line, and being asked if I want to buy a membership card, and et cetera, et cetera. No, anything like that. Instead, the purchase, the browsing and the purchasing was done in a grand total of 15 seconds. And the books were here in a day. Someday the book will be written on Amazon. I'm sure that book will include lots of sins, but I wonder if we keep in mind sufficiently the miracle of Amazon as well. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Either way, these books, I should warn you ahead of time, for those of you who are still clinging to your literary snobbery, I want to point out, rather than share that snobbery with me in comments or in email, kindly don't. Your literary snobbery is not my problem. It's your problem. Whether you realize it or not, it's your problem. Now, if you are prioritizing the kinds of things that you love to read over the kinds of things that you don't love to read, that's not snobbery. At all. Even I, but most people, have very limited time to read. Prioritizing is absolutely necessary. I don't mind hearing about that at all. What I don't want to hear is that there's a lesser or a better kind of reading. Okay, I don't want to hear that. I especially don't want to hear that I ought to set a better example by not reading so-called trash. There's no such thing. In any kind of genre, there can be great writing and poor writing. I'm preaching to the converted here. I know you all know that, but nevertheless, those of you who are not interested in romance probably won't be interested in this video, because I indulged myself buying some romance. So Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, my sister from another mister, will be interested. And all the other romance tubers that I consider myself a romance tuber at heart, they haven't welcomed me into their ranks. But I still consider myself a romance tuber. And I ordered a bunch of romances. So, that's what these things are. That's what they have to be. What else could they be? So we'll do the first one here. I believe I ordered one trade paperback and all the rest mass markets. That might be why there are two different packages here. Yes, okay. The trade paperback that I ordered. Is this self-published? Oh my. It is. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. Jeez. Okay. This is by Alyssa Clark. It's called Marry Me If You Dare. And I ordered it because the premise sounded really good. I'll read you that. But also because of the cover. That is Paul Marin, a staple of romance covers. And this may not be the last time that we see him in this very mail haul. But I would have thought that his asking price would be too high for a self-published book. That's kind of amazing to see a self-published book with a Paul Marin cover. That's kind of amazing. Well, anyway, let's see what we have here. The last thing Lady Purdy, that certainly stands for Perdita. The last thing Lady Purdy expected when she fled London was to encounter difficulties in securing lodgings as a lady traveling alone. I don't know why that would be the last thing you'd consider. Claiming a particular Scotsman as her husband was only supposed to be a brilliant, tiny ruse. Except the damn handsome, devilish, charming scoundrel claims they are now truly married, and he must stay by her side to protect her from undesirables. Purdy was not looking for distraction, or marriage, or the love and attention from any gentleman, yet with each moment spent in Thaddeus's presence, attraction burns hot and fierce, and she finds he awakens an irresistible desire within her, to which she can never surrender. Now I want to know, is it short for Perdita? It must be. Yes, it is. Okay. And you can tell right away that this is a contemporary Regency. I shouldn't call them contemporaries anymore because there's no conservative regencies that are done anymore, where the openly sensuous stuff waits until after the last page of the book. Instead, these regencies, today's regencies, start with that. They open right with it. No idea why she's wearing 21st century lingerie. But I confess that wasn't the first element of the cover that attracted me when I was ordering the book. So Marry Me If You Dare is the first of our books. And we have another package here. It's very heavy. I believe this is everything else. Let's see if I can open this the neat way. Yes, there we go. Leave it to Amazon. I swear, they make everything easy. They make everything easy. They know perfectly well they should do that. And so they do. No entering your personal information every time you want to order something. They remember your personal information. No remembering, oh, what was it that I ordered a month ago that I really need again? They'll remind you of what you ordered a month ago that you really need again. Some people call it evil, I know. Anyway, it's an envelope full of romance. Okay, and this first one is one of these square mass markets. The types that I'm still not used to. This is by Bethany Bennett. This is End Earl. Classic Regency cover. You've got the pile, the enormous country house in the background. Very pretty ornamentation around there. A really nice, low-key little painting, except that they are undressing. That's the only reason that makes it contemporary. While most young ladies attend balls and hunt for husbands, Ophelia Hardwicke has spent the last 10 years in disguise. As the late steward for the Earl of Carlisle, she's found safety from the uncle determined to kill her and freedoms a lady could only dream of. She's the land steward for an earl? She's disguised as a man that whole time, being his steward? I don't see how you'd get away with that. Earls are at this period, earls would be closeted in small rooms with their stewards for an hour at a time, an hour and a half at a time, settling books, sometimes right on top of each other. How in the world? Well, maybe the Earl is blind. Let's see here. Ophelia's situation would be perfect if only she wasn't hopelessly attracted to her employer. All right, he's not blind then. Calvin, Earl of Carlisle, is determined to see his sister married this season, and he'll do it with the help of his trusted right-hand man. But when he finds out Ophelia's secret and that her life is in danger, his priorities change. Their attraction is passionate, all-consuming, and if they aren't careful, it could turn downright deadly for both of them. Fascinating. I don't know what to do with this broader size paperback. They don't fit well on the shelf. Am I going to have to make a separate shelf for them? They're weird. I don't like it. I don't like this form factor. If you're going to make a new form factor, you could do it the normal width of a mass market and just do those taller mass markets like everybody else does. I don't know why romances have to do this. I hope they're not all like this. But anyway, let's move on and see. I'm pretty sure that these are all Regencies. All right, this next one was a normal-sized mass market paperback. This is Vivienne Loret, who's great. This is The Wrong Mistress, The Mating Habits of Scoundrels. And once again, you have the pillars and the scenic background and people who are in mid-coitus. So what have we got here? Elodie Parish, that's E-L-O-D-I-E, Elodie Parish can feel spinsterhood breathing down her neck. That's the trouble with waiting for the Marquis next door her entire life. But Ellie knows if she gives him one last season, he'll finally propose. The only problem is her path keeps crossing with the arrogant Lord Hallworth, who's convinced she has designs on him. Brandon, Marquis of Hallworth, never wanted to be, quote, London's elusive bachelor, or have a horde of hopeful debutantes and their scheming mamas follow him around. His past has left him too jaded to consider marrying any of them. At least that's what he thinks, until he meets Ellie. She's quirky, opinionated, blushes easily, and drives him absolutely wild. The only problem is she believes she's in love with someone else. This sounds familiar. Did I already show this to you? Is it possible that I have ordered a double? It does happen with romance readers. It could be that I've ordered a double. This is the author. She wrote Lord Holt Takes a Bride and My Kind of Earl, two romances that I absolutely loved. That they're the ones that made me fall in love with this author, and maybe this is a double. It certainly sounds familiar. But then again, what romance won't, right? Let's continue here. All right, here's another one of these square things. This is by Christina Britton, and it is called A Duke Worth Fighting For. And once again, you have a lush, pastel cover with characters who are basically nude. on the cover. Daniel Hale, Duke of Carlisle. Didn't we just have a Carlisle? I thought we just did. The Earl of Carlisle was in West End Earl. This is the Duke of Carlisle. A return from Waterloo, a hero, and he has the wounds to prove it. But he dreads the coming London season as he never did the battlefield, where his lack of social skills is certain to make it difficult to find a wife. What he needs is someone to help him practice socializing with the ton, that is, high society. Someone who isn't frightened away by his scars. Marjorie Kittredge is still mourning the loss of her husband, so when she receives a blackmail letter accusing him of desertion, she's desperate to protect her reputation. The answer to her troubles appears in the form of a damaged, reclusive, and much too desirable duke in need of a wife. She proposes an alliance. She'll help him find a bride, and in return for the money to pay off the blackmailer. But working so closely together awakens passions they never imagined possible and reveals secrets that might tear them apart. So they meet for a practical alliance and then fall in love, a standard gimmick of romance that can be done very well. And this is another one of these wider books. See? Same height, but wider. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with those. They won't double stack in shelves that are made for these things. I guess I'm going to have to find out, because they're clearly the way of the future for romance. Let's see what this next one is. This next one is another one of the same thing. This is by Amelie Howard, and it's called The Princess Stakes. Once again, lovely cover, but the man has forgotten his shirt. So what have we got here? Princess Sarani Rao is on the run. In her best disguise, she stows away on the next British ship out of India. My God, is this not a Regency? No, it is not. It's set in 1861. Good Lord. Fantastic. But her secret won't be safe for long. As the port fades in her wake, Sarah takes her first salty breath of relief when a handsome old flame discovers her. The Duke of Embry has enough on his plate. Considering his troublesome new dukedom and his oath to the Queen, country, and crew, the last thing Captain Riston Huntley wants is to help the woman who broke his heart. Still, he cannot deny his lingering desire for her. With rough waters ahead, the two clash even as forgotten passions flare. Okay, so she's an Indian princess. Fantastic. I don't think I've ever read a romance novel like that before. That's fantastic. And it's another one of these wide things. That's 3 of these wide paperbacks. Look at this. They're it's ridiculous. I'll like them anyway. And then we'll do the last one, and then we'll be done here. Oh, this is huge. Good Lord. Okay. Is this an omnibus? It must be. Yeah, this is 2 books. Oh, I didn't know that. This is 2 books. It's another one of these wider things, but that's okay. This is by Vanessa Riley, who I love. I wonder if they'll list some of her other books. Bittersweet Bride, Bashful Bride, Butterfly Bride, A Duke, the Lady, and the Baby, The Earl, the Girl, and the Toddler. I remember some of these. I think I have some of them in the other room. This is called The Brides of London. And it's a bigger, there you have, the faded background there, vague intimations of a beautiful setting. These 2 have their clothes on, which is great. And it contains The Bittersweet Bride and The Bashful Bride, so 2 of the bride novels. In The Bittersweet Bride, widow Theodosia Cecil needs a husband and finds one fast to protect her land, so she places an anonymous ad in the paper. She's delighted spends her remaining weeks exchanging flirtatious letters with the perfect man until she meets him and realizes he's the son of the man trying to steal her land. So that's The Bittersweet Bride. And then The Bashful Bride, a separate novel in this. We've got 2 in 1. This little circle here, 2 in 1, great value, was not on the edition that I bought. So I had no idea this was twice as big as the others. The Bashful Bride is, let's see here, when sparks fly between timid heiress Esther Kroom and the handsome actor, they're quick to elope, but when she discovers there is so much more to him than meets the eye, in order to save the marriage, the shyest woman alive must publicly woo the most desirable man in England, her husband. Fantastic. All right, well, it doesn't matter if these things are weirdly wide. I'm still going to enjoy them. It was an indulgence. I don't always get romances in the mail from publishers, and I love them. I love them far too much to wait just for the romances that I get from publishers. I love the genre far too much for that. The only other alternative would be for me to put on big boy pants and go to the retail bookstore, the one retail bookstore left in Boston that gets romance novels. The other retail bookstores, I think there are 2 in the greater Boston area, are independent bookstores, which all the sanctimonious booktubers will immediately tell you are the only places that you should shop for anything. Be sure to go to your local bookstore, your local mom and pop bookstore. The implication always being in those sanctimonious comments, definitely don't go to Barnes & Noble, or I'll judge you, and 1,000 of my friends will try to destroy you. Definitely don't do that, okay, gang? Okay, fam? And of course, those local bookstores, those independent bookstores, don't have a romance section because they are all snobs. They think there are good and bad kinds of reading. So the bad kinds, the stuff that they declare to be bad, simply won't be in the store. It won't be for sale. Give me a Barnes & Noble with that kind of nonsense any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Cannot stand it when I see that. From what I have recently learned, I took a break from BookTube while I was on this massive writing project because I knew that if I was watching too much of you, I would want to get back involved. So instead I let the algorithm choose the BookTube videos that I was going to watch, and it chose a lot of channels that I don't usually watch. Bigger channels, more polished and professional channels, utterly loathsome, almost all of them, in that kind of schmarmy Stepford wife, head tilted just slightly. How you doing? Are you doing okay? I hope you're doing okay. You don't mean it. You're not even troubling to hide it. You're simply lying in order to create this weird Mr. Rogers atmosphere. And always these utterly fake, phony, how you doing, fam? When if you approach them on the sidewalk, they'd call a cop. All of them had the same pattern, just worked in, just routinely. Make sure you go to your local independent bookstore, okay? But they're not going to have all the books. They're going to have the books they think are right, the right books for the right kind of people. Screw that. And my only alternative to shopping online would have been to look for romances would have been to go to the one big Barnes & Noble that's still left in Boston. And although they don't exercise that kind of judgment, in a store the flagship store in Boston, it's a gigantic place. It takes you forever to walk from one end to the other. And an entire store that is open at 10 in the morning and closes at 8 at night every day of the week. I think there are probably 3 people working. The company has just ruthlessly cut the staff over and over and over and over again until there's virtually nobody there. Which means that if you get a shipment in receiving of 10 pallets full of new releases, you're going to unbox them because you have to break down the empty boxes and get them out of there or you won't be able to fit any new shipments in. You're going to unbox them and put them on V carts and H carts. But there's no staff to put them out. There's no staff to put them out in the store. So as a customer, I mean, that wasn't an impediment to me when I worked at Barnes & Noble, including this particular Barnes & Noble, because I could just go into receiving and look at all of the carts. I could poke around at all that stuff, specifically to pick stuff out for me. But as a customer who can't do that, then I go into this Barnes & Noble, I look at the new releases for, let's say, paperbacks. Whether it's, I don't know whether to call this a mass market paperback or not, but I look at the new releases and they're exactly the same in mid-March as they were in mid-January. Not because there aren't new releases, but because they're all out in the back room. Because putting new books out in order to help customers buy books is the absolute last priority for this doomed company. So the only alternative to that, to the frustration of that, of going all the way to Barnes & Noble, leaving my bean, only to sometimes, as sometimes happens, to walk out empty-handed, the only alternative to that was shopping online, shopping on Amazon. And my reaction, my one hesitation was, well, you get an employee discount at Barnes & Noble. So with this, as with all other surcharges, basically that's what it is, that I encounter online. If I encounter a delivery charge, for instance, for a food delivery service or something or other, whatever it is, whatever the added cost is, I look at that cost and think, is that amount of money, just the delivery cost, is that amount of money equal to or less than the price that I would put on the annoyance that I would feel to obviate it by going in person? If it's a pittance compared to the annoyance of going in person, then I pay it. And I felt that way about these books. I was shopping with them. I was shopping around online on Amazon and realized, well, there's a chance some of these might be at Barnes & Noble, but there's also a chance that there isn't. If you call, the phone's going to ring 10 times and no one's going to answer it. If you happen to get a living employee, they're not going to have any idea what you're talking about. So if you send them looking to see if such and such a book is in the store, you're not going to trust if they come back and say it's not. You're also not going to trust if they come back and say it is. I've had this happen a million times at that Barnes & Noble. There are 2 employees there that know what they're doing, and all the rest of them don't. I factored all of those things in and thought, you know, once in a while, as an indulgence, I will pay that extra price in order to have these books delivered to my doorstep. So that's what I did. I'm very happy because I'm going to read at least one of these in the next 24 hours. So we have The Brides of London by Vanessa Riley. This is an omnibus of 2 of her books that I'm sure I don't have. Then we have The Princess Stakes by Amelie Howard. Not a Regency. Actually, an Indian princess in the Raj. Falls in love with someone. There have been many novels written along those lines, but not a genre romance that I can remember. I'll have to ask Sarah if she remembers anything like that. Then Christina Britton, A Duke Worth Fighting For. All of these are in these big, wider mass markets. Then we have West End Earl by Bethany Bennett. Finally, the only normal-sized mass market that I got, that is The Wrong Mistress by Vivienne Lauret, and I'm starting to think I have this already, which is going to be a little embarrassing. And finally, a trade paperback, a Paul Marin trade paperback, Marry Me If You Dare. So a whole little batch of romance that I got in the mail. How wonderful. I will slice off 1 or 2 of these to read on the docket in the next 24 hours, and I will parcel the others out as treats in the next week. So that's partly the mail. There's more mail coming. There's mail from different publishers coming. It just hasn't arrived yet. It's still fairly early in the day. So if that happens in any presentable amount of time, I will be back, and you will be the first to know. Thank you, BookTube.